The Louisiana State Penitentiary, commonly known as Angola, stands as the largest maximum security prison in the United States. Nestled on 18,000 acres of farmland in West Feliciana Parish, Louisiana, it occupies land that once functioned as a plantation, bearing the same name. This historical backdrop casts a long shadow over the institution, influencing both its operations and the lives of those confined within its walls. Established in 1901, Angola has evolved into a complex correctional facility, housing over 6,300 inmates, the majority of whom are serving life sentences without the possibility of parole. This demographic reality has led many to describe Angola as a place where life sentences often equate to a death sentence, given that most inmates will spend the remainder of their lives incarcerated there. The prison's administration has historically emphasized agricultural labor as a means of inmate rehabilitation and institutional self-sufficiency. Inmates work vast fields, cultivating crops such as cotton, corn, and soybeans. This labor system has drawn criticism for its striking resemblance to the plantation economy that once thrived on the same land, raising ethical questions about the exploitation of inmate labor. Life at Angola is regimented and demanding. Inmates adhere to strict schedules, with work assignments occupying much of their day. While some argue that this structure instills discipline and purpose, others contend that it perpetuates a cycle of dehumanization, reducing individuals to mere laborers within a punitive system. The prison's remote location contributes to its isolation, both geographically and socially. Situated approximately 50 miles northwest of Baton Rouge, Angola's seclusion makes it challenging for families to visit, thereby straining inmates' connections to the outside world. This isolation can exacerbate feelings of hopelessness among those serving lengthy sentences. Despite these challenges, Angola has been the site of notable rehabilitative initiatives. The establishment of educational programs, including literacy classes and vocational training, aims to equip inmates with skills that could be beneficial upon release. However, given the high percentage of life sentences, the practical impact of these programs is often limited to personal enrichment rather than societal reintegration. One of the most renowned programs at Angola is the Prison Rodeo, held annually since 1965. Dubbed the wildest show in the South, it attracts thousands of visitors and provides inmates with an opportunity to participate in events that showcase their skills and resilience. While the rodeo generates revenue and offers a semblance of normalcy, critics argue that it commercializes inmate labor and perpetuates a spectacle reminiscent of historical exploitation. The Angolite, the prison's news magazine, stands as a testament to the inmates' voices and experiences. Established in 1976, it has garnered national acclaim for its investigative journalism and storytelling, shedding light on the realities of life within Angola. The publication serves as a platform for inmates to express their perspectives, fostering a sense of agency within the confines of incarceration. Warden Burl Cain, who served from 1995 to 2016, implemented various faith-based programs, asserting that moral rehabilitation was key to reducing violence and recidivism. Under his tenure, religious activities flourished, leading to debates about the separation of church and state within correctional settings. Supporters claimed these initiatives provided hope and transformation, while detractors questioned their inclusivity and effectiveness. Healthcare at Angola has been a subject of scrutiny. The aging inmate population, coupled with limited medical resources, has led to concerns about adequate care. The prison operates its own hospital, but critics argue that the quality of care falls short of acceptable standards, particularly for those with chronic or terminal illnesses. The documentary The Farm, Angola, USA, released in 1998, offers an intimate portrayal of life within the prison. It follows the stories of 6 inmates, highlighting themes of redemption, despair, and the passage of time. The film received critical acclaim for its unflinching depiction of the human condition within the penal system, prompting discussions about sentencing laws and prison reform. Angola's history is marred by instances of violence and unrest. Notably, the 1951 prison revolt, where inmates protested against brutal living conditions, brought national attention to the facility. The uprising was quelled, but it sparked conversations about the necessity for prison reform and the humane treatment of incarcerated individuals. Racial dynamics within Angola reflect broader societal tensions. The prison's population is predominantly African American, a statistic that underscores systemic disparities in the criminal justice system. This demographic reality, juxtaposed against the prison's plantation history, evokes poignant reflections on the legacy of slavery and ongoing racial inequalities. Legal challenges have periodically brought Angola into the spotlight. Cases addressing issues such as overcrowding, inadequate health care, and the use of solitary confinement have prompted judicial interventions. These legal battles underscore the ongoing struggle to balance punitive measures with constitutional protections and human rights considerations. The prison's museum, located on site, offers visitors a glimpse into its complex history. Exhibits include artifacts, photographs, and narratives that chronicle Angola's evolution from a plantation to a penitentiary. While educational, the museum's portrayal has been critiqued for potentially sanitizing the harsher realities of prison life. Angola's hospice program, established in 1998, provides end-of-life care for terminally ill inmates. Staffed by fellow prisoners trained as caregivers, the program emphasizes compassion and dignity in death. This initiative has been lauded as a model for humane treatment within the correctional system, highlighting the capacity for empathy and rehabilitation even in dire circumstances. Angola's hospice program has also served as a model for other prisons across the country. As the U.S. prison population ages, more correctional facilities are grappling with the question of how to provide humane end-of-life care to inmates who will never leave custody. Angola's program, while seen as compassionate, also highlights the grim reality that many incarcerated individuals will die within the system, often without the presence of family or loved ones. The hospice program, though widely praised, does not change the overall harsh conditions of Angola. Many inmates still experience extreme isolation, limited access to proper health care, and the psychological toll of serving life sentences without parole. The reality for most is that their final years will be spent in a prison hospital or dormitory, often suffering from untreated ailments exacerbated by the stress of incarceration. Despite Angola's reputation as one of the most secure prisons in the country, it has seen its fair share of escapes. In its earlier years, breakouts were more common, as inmates attempted to navigate the harsh swampland that surrounds the prison. However, improved security measures, including armed guard towers, perimeter fencing, and surveillance technology, have made successful escapes almost impossible in modern times. The security measures at Angola include a fully staffed K-9 unit, where bloodhounds are trained to track escapees. The use of these dogs is a long-standing tradition, reinforcing the prison's legacy as a place where attempting to flee is futile. Inmates who try to escape often face severe punishment, including extended time in solitary confinement or additional years added to their sentences. One of the most controversial aspects of Angola is its use of solitary confinement. Inmates who violate prison rules or are deemed a security threat may be placed in isolation for extended periods. Some have spent years or even decades in solitary confinement, leading to severe mental health deterioration. The practice has been widely condemned by human rights organizations, which argue that it constitutes cruel and unusual punishment. Angola has also been a focal point in the national debate over prison labor. The prison's vast agricultural fields require a large workforce, and inmates work long hours in difficult conditions. Although they receive minimal compensation for their labor, the prison justifies this system by claiming it provides structure and a sense of purpose. Critics argue that this is nothing more than modern-day slavery, particularly given Angola's history as a former plantation. Inmates who refuse to work may face disciplinary actions, including the loss of privileges such as visitation, commissary access, or recreational time. Some have described the work as physically grueling, with little protection from extreme heat in the summer or bitter cold in the winter. Despite the hard labor, inmates have little say in how the prison-generated profits from these agricultural endeavors are used. Over the years, Angola has attempted to implement more rehabilitative programs, but the reality remains that for most inmates, release is not an option. Unlike other prisons where inmates can work toward parole or early release through good behavior, Angola houses a population largely composed of individuals who have no chance of leaving. This fosters an atmosphere of despair and, at times, extreme violence. Violence has always been a part of Angola's history. In the past, riots and uprisings were more common, but in recent years, tighter security and stricter regulations have curbed large-scale disturbances. Still, fights, assaults, and even murders continue to occur, as the stress of incarceration and the lack of hope fuel tensions among inmates. One infamous case of violence involved the Angola Three: Herman Wallace, Albert Woodfix, and Robert King. These three men were placed in solitary confinement for decades after being accused of killing a prison guard in 1972. Their prolonged isolation became a major human rights issue, and after years of legal battles, two were eventually released, while Wallace died of cancer shortly after his release in 2013. The Angola Three case highlighted how the prison system can disproportionately punish certain inmates, often with little oversight or external accountability. Woodfix, who was released in 2016, spent over 40 years in solitary confinement, the longest recorded case in U.S. history. His story became a symbol of the broader issues of mass incarceration and racial injustice within the criminal justice system. Another ongoing issue at Angola is its treatment of elderly inmates. Many incarcerated individuals grow old behind bars, yet the prison system is ill-equipped to handle geriatric care. Limited access to proper medical treatment, combined with the harsh physical conditions, means that aging inmates often suffer from untreated ailments, leading to premature death. For those who do manage to be released from Angola, reintegration into society is extremely difficult. Having spent decades in one of the most notorious prisons in the country, many former inmates struggle to find employment, housing, or community support. The stigma of having served time at Angola often follows them for the rest of their lives. Angola has been the subject of multiple lawsuits over the years, particularly regarding its treatment of inmates. Claims of excessive force, abuse, and neglect have resulted in legal battles that have forced the prison to make some reforms. However, the deeply ingrained culture of control and punishment remains largely intact. The impact of Angola extends beyond the prison itself. It influences Louisiana's entire criminal justice system. As one of the harshest penal institutions in the country, Angola sets a precedent for how the state handles incarceration, with Louisiana consistently having one of the highest incarceration rates in the world. Efforts to reform Angola have faced resistance from state officials who believe the prison's strict conditions serve as a necessary deterrent. However, activists continue to push for changes, arguing that the prison's approach is outdated and inhumane. Some former inmates who have managed to reintegrate into society have become advocates for prison reform, using their experiences at Angola to highlight the flaws in the system. They argue that rehabilitation and education should take precedence over harsh punishment, particularly for nonviolent offenders. The public perception of Angola is shaped by both its history and media portrayals. Documentaries, books, and news articles have exposed the realities of life inside. Yet for many Americans, Angola remains a distant concept, an institution they may never truly understand unless they have direct experience with it. As the national conversation on criminal justice reform continues, Angola remains a critical case study. The prison embodies many of the systemic issues that plague the U.S. penal system, from racial disparities and excessive sentencing to inadequate healthcare and inhumane treatment. While Angola's administration has taken steps to modernize aspects of the prison, its fundamental structure remains rooted in a punitive philosophy. Many argue that without significant reform, it will continue to serve as a symbol of America's harsh approach to incarceration. Some question whether Angola should even continue to operate in its current form. Given its history and the abuses that have taken place within its walls, calls for its closure or significant restructuring have grown louder in recent years. However, any major reform faces strong opposition from those who see Angola as a necessary institution. The debate over its future is likely to continue for years, as policymakers, activists, and the public wrestle with the broader issues of criminal justice reform. For now, Angola remains what it has always been, a place where thousands of men live out their final days, cut off from the outside world, working the same fields that once enslaved their ancestors, and waiting for a future that, for many, will never come. The prison's educational initiatives have extended to higher education opportunities. Partnerships with universities have enabled inmates to pursue degrees in theology and other disciplines. These programs aim to foster personal growth and, for some, provide a pathway to roles such as inmate ministers, contributing positively to the prison community.